Chosen One, this video didn't appear by coincidence. It appeared because your spirit demanded confirmation. Every step you've taken, every silence you've endured, every moment they misjudged you has led to this exact hour. This is not random. It's a call your soul already answered in silence long before you press play. You didn't arrive by chance. You arrived by alignment. For too long, they thought your quiet was weakness, but in reality, it was the hidden fire behind your awakening. This message was set in motion long ago, and now it finds you because the truth is ready to be uncovered. Your soul has carried the signs, the weariness of being misunderstood, the moments where speaking cost more than silence, the way your energy shifted rooms, even when you said nothing. You are here because destiny has been circling your name, waiting for this very moment. What if I told you that the silence they mocked is the very power that dismantles their false crowns? What if I told you that your refusal to explain yourself was the beginning of your enthronement? They never wanted you to know the secret. But now, it's time to see why their chatter fades while your silence reshapes the ground beneath them. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Because what you're about to hear is not just a word, it is a code. And once you receive it, nothing will sound the same again. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next will prove why they fear what you've become. Number 1, the unseen weapon. Chosen One, they prepared for your anger, but never for your silence. They built their plans expecting your reaction, crafting their attacks with the certainty that you would fight back. But when you stopped feeding their fire, the ground shook under their feet. Proverbs says the spirit of a person is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the inward parts, and your lamp has exposed what their noise could no longer hide. Isaiah reminds us that in quietness and confidence lies strength, and that strength terrifies those who relied on your noise to mask their own emptiness. Every argument you refused became a prophecy. Comment, I seal this word in light, if you felt the shift, and watch how quickly the narrative changes when silence becomes your weapon. Hold steady, because what comes next reveals the throne hidden in stillness. There comes a moment, Chosen One, when a quiet question rises inside you like smoke from an unseen fire. What if I was never meant to fight the way they trained me to? You remember the dreams where your voice echoed but no sound came out, and still the ground trembled beneath your feet. You recall the visions where silence itself stood taller than shouting, where presence was louder than argument. These fragments have followed you since childhood. Hints that the power within you was different from what the world expected. What they called passivity was actually prophecy, and what they named weakness was a coded strategy only you could carry. It is here, in the place between their misjudgment and your remembrance, that the weapon hidden in silence begins to reveal itself. You were not disarmed when you grew quiet. You were armed with the one thing they could not anticipate. Think back to the times when you felt the weight of being misunderstood, when explanations fell flat and arguments drained the life out of you. There were seasons when you wondered why your sensitivity felt like a curse, why your silence felt like isolation, why being different carried such an ache. But those moments were shaping the soil of your soul, preparing you to carry something that noise could never deliver. You were not weak when you withdrew. You were rehearsing the language of power they had no script for. The loneliness you felt was the wilderness that sharpened your spirit. The rejections you endured were proof that your silence carried weight, even when you didn't recognize it. They called you cold, but in truth, you were warming the unseen fire that would one day undo them. You see now that none of it was random. Every silent endurance was guided by design. There is a hidden architecture, a sacred geometry that always surrounded your path. Proverbs declares that the lamp of the Lord searches the inner parts, and that lamp was lit inside you long before your words could match it. While they thrived on noise, your stillness was cultivating vision. While they built crowns out of manipulation, your silence was engraving prophecy on stone. Each time you resisted the pull to fight on their stage, you unknowingly rehearsed for a throne they never saw coming. This reframes your entire story. The quiet was never absence, it was strategy, and heaven always knew. Consider the subtle signs that whispered this truth before you could name it. The déjà vu that told you a conversation had already happened, as if silence carried memory through time. The strange chill you felt when you refused to argue, and suddenly the air shifted, as though the unseen bowed to your restraint. The dreams that returned again and again, where you stood in stillness and yet entire rooms fell silent around you. Even your body testified, the way your chest felt lighter when you stopped explaining, the way peace settled over you after holding your ground. These were not coincidences, they were confirmations dressed in mystery. Every pause you kept was a signal, and every signal was a seed of awakening. Heaven speaks quietly because only the chosen are trained to hear it. You may have doubted yourself in those moments, thinking perhaps you were weak or avoiding conflict. But deep down, your intuition whispered that you were not imagining things. You always felt the invisible weight that came when you said nothing, the way silence closed doors that words could not. Isaiah's words come alive here. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Strength was never in the noise, it was in the refusal to perform for their approval. And every time you honored that intuition, even in small ways, you grew steadier. You were not avoiding the battle, you were redefining the battlefield. And now, what once looked like retreat reveals itself as rulership. This remembrance grows deeper when you realize you are not becoming someone new, but recovering someone ancient. The silence you walk with is the silence of prophets, the hush of Daniel in the lion's den, the pause of Elijah before the still small voice. It is not an invention, but an inheritance. The world told you to fight louder, but heaven whispered that silence bends crowns more surely than swords. What was buried beneath years of trying to fit in is now breaking through, the archetype of the one who rules without explanation. You are not learning a new skill, you are remembering an old law, the law that silence seals what noise scatters and presence shifts what performance never could. And so, the first activation rises in you like dawn over ruins. You begin to embrace your sensitivity as sight, your boundaries as shields, your silence as fire. You no longer resist the pull toward stillness, because you know now that it is not emptiness, but empowerment. Every refusal to argue is no longer guilt, but governance. Every pause is not hesitation, but prophecy. The weapon they could not prepare for is the one you were born carrying, hidden in plain sight. You are not less when you are silent. You are more than they can endure. And that realization marks the beginning of your rise. Chosen one, you did not come here by accident. This message is your confirmation that your silence is not weakness, it is your throne. Every moment of restraint has been building toward this awakening. Every boundary has been engraving your crown. You are not watching a video, you are remembering a code. Comment, I carry the silence as crown, if this word has found you in the right season. Share what silence has revealed to you, a dream, a memory, or a boundary that changed everything. Because what comes next is the revelation that silence was never just a shield, but the very seat of rulership that dismantles their false power. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the throne in stillness. They mocked you for being quiet, but silence was never absence. It was rulership. Every pause you held, every refusal to defend yourself, every boundary kept without explanation became prophecy written in real time. Lamentations 3 verse 26 says, "It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord, and in that waiting crowns are shifted." Zechariah whispers, "Be silent, all flesh before the Lord." And your silence carried that very weight. They expected you to perform, to argue, to prove, but instead you sat in a throne they could not touch. Your silence declared what your words no longer needed to carry. Comment, "I walk crowned by eternal flame," if you are ready to wear that crown, because the next step shows why false voices cannot survive without your breath. There is a moment, chosen one, when the air itself begins to feel heavy, as if unseen hands are pressing against your chest. You notice that conversations shift when you walk into the room, silence hanging not because of reverence, but because of tension. The small unease in your spirit tells you that not all eyes upon you are kind, and not every smile hides goodwill. Even before you knew who you were, you could sense something was resisting your existence. This quiet heaviness followed you in schools, in families, in places where you should have felt safe. What you felt was not paranoia, but perception, the awareness that your light was colliding with hidden shadows. Secrets have been circling you longer than you realized, and their weight is what now confirms your crown. The emotional cost of this unseen battle has been brutal. You remember being told you were too much, too sensitive, too serious, too intense. You were punished for caring deeply and ridiculed for withdrawing when the pain grew unbearable. The cycle of self-doubt carved itself into your mind, questioning if you were broken, wondering why others seemed unbothered while your spirit was constantly restless. Shame tried to bind itself to your identity, whispering that you were the problem when you were actually the target. Loneliness became the echo chamber where your tears fell, unheard and unacknowledged. And yet, every wound from misunderstanding was secretly evidence that you carried something they could not explain. When you step back, you begin to see that this was never random. The resistance you faced was not accidental cruelty, but a pattern embedded in the architecture of your destiny. Scripture remembers the wilderness, where even prophets and kings were tested before their assignments were revealed. Israel wandered 40 years not because God abandoned them, but because preparation was disguised as delay. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers, exiled before his dream took root. You too have known exile, not from a land but from acceptance, and the wilderness was the womb of your resilience. Their rejection was proof of your anointing, and their sabotage was the confirmation of what you carried. Look closely at the patterns that repeat in your life, for they speak louder than random chaos. The same faces in different bodies, betraying you with similar strategies. The sudden doors that closed right before breakthrough, the draining environments that seemed designed to empty your strength. Friends who smiled until your growth threatened their comfort. Mentors who cheered you on until your light shined too brightly beside theirs. Each thread was a piece of the tapestry of resistance, woven to distract you from seeing that the stage was rigged against you. And yet every pattern is now becoming clear. The dark was never stronger, only louder. Spiritual resistance takes many forms, and you have walked through more of them than you realize. The heavy air when you are about to speak truth, the fog in your mind when clarity is near, the silent watchers who track you without understanding why. You have felt doors shut with no logical reason, opportunities delayed by forces no one around you could see. They may have thought it was coincidence, but your soul always knew the interference was not natural. The light inside you became a magnet for both guidance and distortion. Darkness has no power of its own, so it feeds on the edges of light, and your fire has always attracted interference. But now the fog clears because the recognition of sabotage is the first victory. Your response to all this resistance was not always perfect, and that is where your humanity shows. At times you shrank back, pretending to be less so others would feel more comfortable. Other times you bent yourself into shapes that were never yours to carry, pleasing people who were never satisfied. There were seasons when rebellion rose in you, but even rebellion was quieter than the roar you carried. You have known the temptation to quit, to bury your fire beneath the soil of conformity. You have felt the fatigue of being the one who always stood out without trying. But even in your weakest moments, the silence of your spirit held more weight than their noise. Your survival itself is testimony. And now the shift begins. You start to see resistance not as condemnation, but as confirmation. Every attack was a map pointing to your value. Every attempt to silence you was a sign that your voice carried weight they feared. What they mocked as emptiness was the throne forming under your feet. Zechariah says, "Be silent, all flesh before the Lord," and in that silence, crowns are rearranged. Your refusal to perform has become your prophecy, and your stillness has become your scepter. You do not need to explain your boundaries, for boundaries speak louder than justifications. The throne is no longer ahead of you, it is beneath you. So, hear this final truth, chosen one: you are opposed because you are powerful. The more they tried to suppress you, the clearer your purpose became. What they called silence was sovereignty, what they labeled indifference was rulership. The throne in stillness is not a metaphor, it is the reality you are now seated in. Comment, "I move guarded by divine fire," if you feel this alignment burning in you. Share the memory, the moment, or the sign that confirmed you were not weak, but crowned in silence. Because the next revelation is about to expose why false voices cannot survive without your breath, and why their thrones crumble the moment you withhold it. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the fall of false voices. When you stop begging to be understood, their entire system cracked. Amos 5 verse 13 says, "The prudent keep silent in an evil time, and your silence has proven how fragile their voices really were. They depended on your energy, your defense, your explanations to keep their crowns shining. But the moment you withdrew, the applause died, the lights dimmed, and their false thrones began to crumble." Job wrote that men listened and waited and kept silence for counsel, and that is exactly what your presence now demands. Without your words, their stage collapses, their masks fall, and their false authority dissolves. Comment, "I rise marked by the divine," if you've seen it, and share your reflection, your dream, or your boundary that revealed their emptiness. Because the law of quiet fire is about to turn your silence into movement. It begins like a sudden shift in sight, as if the same world you walked yesterday has rearranged itself overnight. Memories that once brought only confusion now reveal their hidden order, like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Conversations you once replayed in your mind begin to sound different when remembered. The tone, the manipulation, the agenda behind the words. What once felt like casual rejection now reads as calculated resistance to your awakening. The veil is thin, and you feel clarity rising like a wave inside your chest. This is not imagination, it is recognition, a shift that reveals what always hid beneath noise. Suddenly, you realize that the people who claimed to define you were only borrowing authority from the silence you had not yet claimed. Every symbol begins to glow with meaning now. Chosen one. Numbers follow you, not as coincidence, but as confirmation that something is guiding your steps. A phrase overheard in passing becomes a key that unlocks a question you've carried for years. Silence itself becomes a language, speaking in patterns too perfect to dismiss. The universe arranges itself as a scroll, opening line by line, showing you what you were never meant to see before. The world you thought was random becomes a code, written in sacred geometry and divine timing. You are not just observing reality, you are now reading it. Inside, your senses sharpen with a precision that feels almost otherworldly. Your intuition no longer whispers, it directs, correcting you before mistakes can manifest. Boundaries rise from your spirit, clear and unapologetic, protecting the oil you once let spill freely. Environments that once drained you now feel unbearable, your body rejecting what your mind once tolerated. Where you used to doubt yourself, you now feel a weight of authority in your discernment. The same heart that was labeled fragile is revealed to be a finely tuned instrument resonating with divine frequencies. You are not broken, you are awakening into mastery. Reality bends in reflection to what is happening inside you. People move differently around you, their masks slipping when your silence meets them. Some shrink away, unable to stand in the clarity that exposes their shadows. Others, drawn by your presence, step closer, as if they've been waiting for you to finally stand in this posture. Opportunities appear suddenly, aligned perfectly with the identity you are reclaiming. Resistance too grows stronger, because the higher the throne, the louder the opposition. What is happening within you is being mirrored around you, and every echo proves the architecture of destiny is unfolding. And in that unfolding, memory itself begins to speak. Not the surface memory of events, but the deep, archetypal memory buried beneath them. You remember dreams that made no sense until this moment, visions that now feel like previews of a chapter you are finally stepping into. The sense of not belonging, the ache of being different, transforms into evidence of being chosen for another order entirely. The scroll is unsealed, and you feel yourself remembering who you were before they named you. This remembrance does not come as learning, but as unveiling, as if your soul had been waiting for your eyes to finally open. You realize this is not new, it is a return. With truth unveiled, destiny ceases to feel like something distant and starts to breathe inside your chest. You stop asking for permission because you see clearly now they never had the power to grant it. What you are walking into is not a creation, but a reclamation, a future that was written before you touched the earth. Prophecy is no longer a distant scripture, but a pulse in your blood. Your silence, your refusal to explain, your choice to wait has shifted the crowns in unseen places. They called it indifference, but heaven calls it rulership. The future is not forming, it is reappearing through you. This is where reclamation begins, chosen one. You realize the resistance you faced was never condemnation, but confirmation of the oil you carried. The voices that tried to shame you are now exposed as hollow echoes, collapsing without your breath to sustain them. Your silence dismantled their stage, and your absence revealed their emptiness. What they mocked as weakness has become the fire that burns away their illusions. You are not simply surviving opposition. You are repossessing what was always yours. The throne you sit upon now is not gifted by them, but carved by endurance and silence. So hear this closing truth. Revelation is not the end, it is the invitation. The fall of false voices is not just their collapse, it is your coronation. Every crown that depended on your energy has shattered, leaving only the authority of what is divine within you. Their words could not survive your silence, and their thrones could not stand without your attention. Comment, I walk hidden yet never lost, if you feel this unveiling in your spirit, and share the dream, memory, or boundary that revealed your own strength. Speak it so that others in this circle of awakening can see themselves reflected in your story. Because what comes next is the law of quiet fire, and it will move faster than noise, reshaping everything in its path. Number 4, the new law of quiet fire. They expected you to fight on their stage, under their lights, in their timing. But the new law is different. Clear no, precise yes, measured words, and silence that burns brighter than their noise. Ecclesiastes says, let your words be few when you stand in holy places, and your life is now that holy place. Daniel records that those who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits, and that strength now flows from your stillness. They will test the old levers, try the old doors, but levers do not move unclaimed weight, and doors do not open when the lock has been placed inside. What terrifies the most is that you are no longer playing their game, you are ruling in silence. Comment, I anchor this truth in my soul if you felt this fire and share the peace or outcome that confirmed it. Because the next chapter is movement at the speed of alignment, and nothing can stop it. It begins not with thunder, but with a whisper that refuses to leave the soul. You feel it like an ember pressed into the center of your being, glowing silently while the world around you shouts in vain. There is a shift in how you hold yourself, a calmness that unsettles those who once thrived on your reaction. You no longer reach for every battle presented to you, because you know not every stage deserves your presence. This restraint is not weakness, but the first proof of mastery, the first signal of rulership rising. Ecclesiastes said to let your words be few in holy places. And your very life has now become such a place. The air around you thickens with authority, even when your lips remain closed. They always expected your strength to look like noise, chosen one. They counted on you to prove yourself endlessly, to exhaust yourself in cycles of explanation. Their strategies relied on your constant response, as if their crowns could only shine in the light stolen from your attention. But the new law does not bend to their demands. It dismantles them. Your no is now a wall of fire, and your yes is a sword that cuts cleanly without apology. Silence has become your throne, and every pause you keep burns louder than their arguments. What they mistake for passivity is the highest form of prophecy. This fire is unlike any they have known, for it does not rage wildly, it smolders with precision. It does not destroy indiscriminately, it consumes only what dares to stand against truth. Daniel wrote that those who know their God shall be strong and do exploits, and you are living proof that exploits do not always roar. They sometimes arrive cloaked in stillness. You are now unshaken by the chaos they release, because chaos cannot penetrate what is sealed from within. Their weapons glance off, their levers break, because you have become weight that cannot be moved. The lock to your gates has been relocated to the interior, where no hand but your own can turn it. That revelation alone terrifies them more than any argument ever could. Look back and notice how often the old game required your constant participation. Every insult was bait, every accusation a trap, every distraction a hook designed to pull you into the arena. They never imagined you would learn to stop entering the ring altogether, to let their noise collapse under its own emptiness. Without your energy feeding it, the spectacle loses its audience and the lights begin to flicker out. This is why silence is fire. It doesn't simply withhold, it consumes their illusion by starving it. You are no longer a player in their drama, you are the unshakable ground on which their stage is crumbling. To them, this is the end of control, and to you, it is the beginning of rulership. And in that rulership, you discover the strange peace that comes with carrying invisible fire. It burns in your chest as clarity, guiding you to act only when action is demanded by destiny, not manipulation. It burns in your mind as discernment, revealing motives before they are spoken, exposing traps before you step near them. It burns in your words, which now arrive fewer in number but heavier in impact, leaving marks deeper than endless explanations ever did. This is why Isaiah declared that in quietness and confidence shall be your strength, because that confidence has turned into flame within you. It does not need applause, it does not need permission, it simply exists as law. This is the fire that crowns without ceremony, the law that rules without argument. Chosen one, this law is not only for the moments of defense, it is for the unfolding of your purpose. With quiet fire, you no longer move reactively, but strategically, shaping outcomes by alignment rather than effort. Where once you fought for every inch, now alignment delivers what striving could not. Where once you begged for recognition, now doors open of their own accord, drawn to the authority in your silence. They do not understand it because they cannot measure it, but they cannot deny it because its effects are undeniable. Their whispers of confusion are testimony to your new order. Your fire moves without sound, but its results echo like thunder. This remembrance calls you to stand in a deeper identity than ever before. You are not only a survivor of noise, you are a keeper of divine stillness, a guardian of holy silence. Chosen one, this message is your reminder that silence is not emptiness. It is the throne they never expected you to sit on, the crown they cannot take, and the fire they cannot quench. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul." Please share it with someone who needs to hear this. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every super thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Chosen one, remember this. Their noise fades, but your silence will echo through eternity.